Production of Kansas City Week in Review is made possible through the generous support of Dave and Jamie Cummings, Smithfield Foods, Haas and Wilkerson Insurance, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Help wanted, a new Kansas City police chief. Will he stay or will he go? Brownback, Rome bound or in Kansas for the long haul? The Trump budget in KC, does it mean the end of streetcar expansion plans? And with college hoops at Sprint Center dominating news attention, we step back with an update on what is and isn't making money in the Power and Light District.
Hello, I'm Nick Haynes. It's good to be back with you to connect the dots on the news of the week and some of the stories we missed during our KCPT Spring Membership Drive. Dissecting those stories from the Call newspaper, senior reporter Eric Wesson. From KCUR News, Mr. Up-to-Date, Steve Kraske. From the pages of your Kansas City Star, Dave Helling. And Pitch contributing writer Barbara Shelley. Kansas City's top cop is departing. Kansas City, Missouri Police Chief Darrell Forte announced this week he's retiring after 6 years at the helm. He says he plans to take a law school admission test and attend law school. Why now, Eric Wesson?
Well, I think it's time. The life expectancy of a chief of police in a major metropolitan city is 4 to 6 years. He wants to spend time with his family, his granddaughter. He's tired of getting up in the middle of the night going to homicide scenes and listening to all the complaints about violent crime. So now is a good time for him.
Did anything happen behind the scenes, Barbara, to motivate this decision?
Not that I know of. You know, I had heard in the last couple months that he was going to announce a retirement at some point. You know, I do kind of wonder, all the things Eric just said, it seems to me that in the past couple of years he's developed kind of a testy relationship with Mayor James as well.
Do you think that's part of this? He's only 55 years old.
It's only 55, but I think Eric has said it right. You know, the typical tenure is 4 to 6 years for a job like this. I think this is a big loss for the city, Nick. This is a man who has worked tirelessly, as evidenced by his $500,000 severance package that he's asking for here. But having said that, you know, he has really connected the east side of the community more in a way with the police department and brought the department out into the city in a way. He's worked tirelessly. He's always on his motorcycle, cruising around town, talking to people, and that's been an important thing for the city's first African-American police chief.
He leaves at a time, though, when we are seeing the homicide rate really uptick quite substantially in Kansas City, Dave Helling. But what is his legacy?
Well, a couple of things. I wrote this week, you can't really, you know, the chief has some responsibility for violent crime, but it's not solely his or her responsibility. And there are so many other pathologies involved that to blame the chief or to credit the chief really for the rise and fall of the murder rate is probably a little aggressive. He also has a bit of a stain on his resume concerning the Crimes Against Children unit, which the Star wrote about extensively about 8, 9, 10 months ago, where a lot of cases were delayed for years and evidence was lost, testimony wasn't given, and that's a bit of a problem. But by and large, I think the greatest legacy for the chief is he entered that job facing enormous challenges with middle-level officers who resisted the idea of an African-American chief. That's just the reality of it. And frankly, I think one of the reasons he's leaving is that resistance, that sort of low-level hum, continued throughout his entire time in office, particularly when he tried to do a little bit better job of advancing African Americans in the police ranks and the outreach to the community on the east side. And like all of us, he probably just got tired of it. At some point, you just go, I'm tired of fighting this battle over and over again.
And tires slashed in the driveway, cars scratched up. Those are some of the things, too. But when we get to violent crime and homicides in our community, it's not going to change. I don't care who the chief of police is, until the culture in our households change. When we change those cultures where families are saying it's okay for you to have a gun, I'm not going to look in your room, I know you're doing these things, I'm not going to say anything about it. Until we change that culture, the next chief of police is going to have the same problem. I think to his credit, the ShotSpotter helped in targeted areas in the 39th Street area and around there where there was a lot of gun violence. The hot spots, getting cops or police officers to crime areas after a gun has been fired, that's been a lot better. So he has better response times, let me say that.
Barbara.
Well, one of the things I'm going to miss about Chief Forte is his blog. He writes a blog, and he did put up a post toward the end of the year saying most of the homicides in 2016, the police department could not have been stopped by law enforcement. They were domestic violence, etc. Steve mentioned this enormous, nearly $500,000 payout that he's going to be getting. In a way, I think the Board of Police Commissioners does its candidates no favor with an offer like that, because that is going to be remembered as part of his legacy as well. Oh, he's the guy who left and got $500,000.
But should he be blamed for that? He said he didn't take any vacation. He worked lots of hours. That he was.
No, he shouldn't be blamed for that. This is a management problem.
Right.
Management failed to oversee and rein this in and urge him to use up sick time and vacation time in years far previous to this, Nick. And Barb's right. This is what his legacy is going to be now. He deserves better than that.
What is the challenge of getting a new police chief in Kansas City, Missouri?
Well, the threshold question, Nick, is whether you promote internally, find someone already in the force, and raise him or her up to the job of chief, or if you go outside the community and look for someone new. I talked to some folks close to the police board this week. They all sort of said, let's do a national search, see if there's some new blood we can bring in. That always sounds good, but it's very difficult to execute because the police department is such a culture-bound, hide-bound organization, and there is always deep resistance to someone from out of town. So my guess is they'll try and find someone to promote internally.
It seems to me also one big question facing the next chief is this a question that lurks out there for all police chiefs, which is the city finally going to sort of come to grips with this local control question and say, hey, we want it back. Take it away from the state of Missouri. Kansas City, the only city in America with that lacks local control when it comes to its police department. That question continues to lurk out there in the ether. Governor Greitens might be open to making that switch. Police chiefs have resisted it mightily for years, Nick. So that'll be a factor in all this.
Barbara.
And one thing my sense is that Chief Forte is going to leave a sound police department. We haven't heard of any scandals in the top ranks, anything like that. He did promote good people. Why are you laughing?
Yeah, well, there is
some
one
scandal.
Yeah, there is an exception. There is an FBI investigation now underway in which the chief was involved actually about 6 months ago. I was told he was actually interviewed by the FBI involving I think it was a major in the department and some alleged irregularities there. I was told that might have contributed at least something to his decision to retire. We'll have to see.
Oh.
But that wouldn't be so much as to suggest the city will go for an outside candidate to sort of straighten up the department.
Correct.
The place has been run fairly well. I think it'll be an inside choice.
They get a lot of lawsuits that kind of fly under the radar. They pay a lot of them off. They get quite a few lawsuits.
Well, speaking of job hopping, while we were in our membership drive, big splashy news headlines again over Sam Brownback's career plans. The New York Times taking a closer look at that story this week under the headline, Rome is looking better from Topeka, a reference to reports that the Kansas governor is being considered for an ambassadorship in the Italian capital. He would lead, according to some accounts, the U.S. mission to the United Nations in Rome, coordinating the work of agencies involved in food and agriculture programs. Whatever happened to that job, Steve?
Well, we don't know. I think it's probably a possibility that he might still wind up taking that position, Nick. We haven't heard resolution there. Still any number of, lots of openings in the Trump administration here. Things haven't been filled yet. I think it's still very much a possibility, but I don't know.
It seems like a small potatoes kind of a job, though, for somebody like Sam Brownback with his credentials, though, doesn't it, Barbara?
Well, I'm not sure Sam Brownback's credentials right now are the best. I think he would like to maybe get back to this vision of himself as a humanitarian and kind of leave all the problems of Kansas behind. One thing I did hear about this job is that he'd be in charge of overseeing, some refugee food problems, which is kind of ironic considering his posture about accepting refugees in Kansas.
Dave.
Yeah, I think all of these stories, and I've said this on the program before, Nick, are a bit overwrought. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I've been told repeatedly that They're just waiting for the governor to decide what he wants to do, and he seems to be torn between staying here and trying to find a job somewhere else. I do think he's a little worried about the perception that he's running away from the problems that he created in the state of Kansas. So it will happen when it happens. But the key point is, increasingly, Sam Brownback is irrelevant in Topeka anyway. I mean, the legislature and legislators are cutting their deals now on school finance, taxes, the budget, almost without even giving any consideration to what the governor wants one way or the other. They almost overrode his veto of the tax bill. The school finance formula came out this week. They're going to work on that, put that together. And basically the governor is reduced to being the cheerleader or not cheerleader from the sidelines. So whether he stays or goes, it's pretty irrelevant.
I think he's done a lot to remove himself from the equation, Nick. Some of this perhaps has been intentional, not making some tough budget choices earlier in the year. And you can't help but wonder if that wasn't intentional as a way to not undermine his chances for an appointment of some kind with the Trump administration.
While we were doing our spring membership drive, the Kansas Supreme Court announces they will shut down Kansas schools. That's not the first time they've said it, but they're going to shut down Kansas schools again at the end of June if they don't find enough money for equitable education funding in Kansas. Again, it's something we've heard many, many times before on this program. We also know that the state is trying to fix its budget. They haven't got enough money. How is that working out at this point in time, Barbara?
Well, the latest operative plan I heard, maybe come up with $75 million, which is a far cry from the up to $800 million that the Supreme Court is demanding, that they think it may be required because of the Supreme Court ruling. The Supreme Court hasn't set a number. But yeah, I mean, this is just, I don't know how they're going to work this out in light of the other budget problems facing Kansas.
Yeah. The Supreme Court said, Nick, that 1 in 4 Kansas students is basically failing at reading and math or not achieving test scores that are acceptable. And they said, fix that. Fix that. Bring those kids up to a standard level. And they didn't say how much that would cost or how to spend it. And I think the legislature is on the track to try and figure out the best way to send money to those districts with the poorest performing students. $75 million isn't going to get there, but $800 million is unrealistic too. There was no way that the taxpayers of Kansas are going to be asked to come up with that kind of money. So I think they're kind of on the right track. We should have a solution in the next couple of weeks.
And I think 1 in 4 is a very conservative number. And I don't know if they're just generalizing Wyandotte County and that school district. But I think 1 in 4 is really conservative because there are a lot of problems when you get into the elementary schools and middle schools over in KCK.
Well, in a surprising move, Kansas lawmakers moving fast and furious, too, to expand Medicaid. It's already passed the House and is now in the Senate, where it's expected to be voted on Monday. When the Affordable Care Act was signed 7 years ago, it came with a very generous offer to states. If you expand your Medicaid programs, we'll pay 90% of the bill. That was a good deal then, but the new Trump administration has made it clear they want to eliminate that financial incentive. So why would Kansas want to now move forward with expanding Medicaid for 150,000 more people when they can't balance the budget and can't adequately fund schools, Steve?
Well, I think this is one clear sign, Nick, that elections matter. The election last November that ushered in more Democrats, more moderate Republicans, has changed the tenor in Topeka, making passage of Medicaid expansion more possible than ever before. I think the thinking over there simply is people in Topeka don't know what's going to happen in Washington. As we sit here today, it looks like Obamacare might well be around for a while. And under that kind of thinking, the lawmakers in Topeka are considering expanding it, and we'll do what we can do, and we'll let the federal people worry about what they do.
Barbara.
Oh, there's at least one hospital in Kansas that closed down for lack of funds, and this failure to expand Medicaid was part of the reason. And you have doctors throughout the state and the hospital association saying, let's do this, don't worry about what they're doing in Washington. Let's go for it and let the cards fall as they may in Washington.
But why add to what could be a major financial burden on the state when there's so many other big price tags they have to pay for currently?
Because a third, Nick, fully a third of the rural hospitals in Kansas have been deemed vulnerable right now financially. Lawmakers in Topeka are under enormous pressure that save those hospitals back in their own districts. Barbara's right. There was a hospital in Independence down in southeast Kansas that actually shut down. Others might follow. Lawmakers are feeling that pressure. Those are big job providers in their communities. They want to save them.
There's, this issue of cost. I mean, there are some studies that show that Kansas actually will save money by doing the Medicaid expansion. It'll bring in federal funds, it'll pick up costs in mental health and so forth. There's no reason to think that this is going to be another budget buster for the state of Kansas.
I don't disagree with that, but just very quickly, Medicaid is very expensive. It's extraordinarily expensive for the states. The current Medicaid system, it's up to a third of the budget in a lot of places. So you can see why the reticence of some members to endorse expanded Medicaid. If Kansas adopts it, whatever happens in Washington, it will be a political miracle because it will have to overcome a veto by Governor Brownback. That means 2/3 of both houses are going to have to endorse expanded Medicaid. No one would have seen that coming just a year ago. It would really be a metaphysical political miracle.
And that's probably still a reach.
Yeah, and it's still
Well,
a reach.
on the Missouri side, state lawmakers are back in their home constituencies taking a mid-session break. They're touting their accomplishments so far, which include making Missouri a right-to-work state and a host of bills close to the finish line, including a change to discrimination law that would make it harder to sue a former employer, an expansion of charter schools to districts all over the state, and a bill that would immediately block Missouri cities from increasing the minimum wage. Is that to block Kansas City's recent council vote to raise the minimum wage to $13 an hour, Eric?
Absolutely. Kansas City and St. Louis. Those are the two Democratic cities. Whatever they can do to block or stop that. And big business is behind it. They're lobbying and in those elected officials' ears, telling them, hey, we don't need this. It'll put us out of business. Less people will be working. So the rural area elected officials are going for it. But yeah, that bill is definitely for Kansas City and St. Louis.
Right now, we have charter schools in Kansas City and in St. Louis. What would be the impact of having charter schools all across the state of Missouri? Barbara?
Well, the impact would definitely be mixed. And just, one illustration, I've been following things in Hickman Mills closely for KCUR. And there's talk about starting a charter school down there, which they can currently under state law because it's a provisionally accredited district. But even down there, it's going to be a real heavy lift to get the community support and the financing and all to start a charter school. So, Missouri, there's some donors and some factions in Missouri politics, fairly powerful. Rex Sinkfield has wanted charter schools for years. They want the legislature to pass a bill making it possible. But whether you'd see charter schools in rural Missouri or even the Center School District, the Raytown School District, I don't know. It's easier said than done.
Dave?
I think the theme of the first couple of months of the Missouri session and the first couple of months of Governor Greitens' time in office is a bit surprising to me anyway. It's very pro-business. Now, you would think going in that they would focus on ethics reform, which is what Eric Greitens talked a lot about, or maybe sort of social issues, abortion, guns, all the stuff that always comes up. But the first 2 months have really been almost all about helping businesses or, getting rid of discrimination, tort reform, the minimum wage, prevailing wage. It's a very Chamber of Commerce, help the rich guys, don't help the working poor approach. I think the main theme of the second half will be what happens with ethics reform in Jefferson City. We all thought that was at the top of the agenda. It's falling apart in part because Governor Greitens is less than ethical in some parts of his governorship, and and legislators are going to say, "Hey, fix your own house before you're worried about ours."
Steve,
they've picked the easy apples off the tree here, the low-hanging fruit.
Right to work.
They haven't gone after the tougher issues, whether it's funding transportation, more fully funding public schools, ethics reform that Dave Helling just mentioned here. And you get a sense that these are passing lots of pro-business bills. It pads Governor Greitens' portfolio. Listen, the talk in Jefferson City is this governor wants to run for president someday. He wants to pad his resume with lots of bills passed, and if they don't get big things done, it may not hurt him that much in the long run.
Transportation is dead. I think this session
it's not going anywhere.
A member of the legislature said we're
walking away.
Anything.
Well, isn't that
They
the
have to
story of
fix
Jefferson
I-70.
City? The low-hanging fruit, year after year. They
Yeah.
do what they can, they do these things, and they leave the big issues. It affects everybody in the state on the table.
They got to fix I-70. whatever they do.
But Dave, you just said that transportation was
in the
done.
past week, they said we're not going to consider any tax measure that would do roads this year, which is a huge problem and arguably a huge mistake. And again, it suggests that the governor's leadership profile with the legislature isn't what he would like it or others would like it. I mean, did you see Eric Greitens saying we need to fix I-70? Of course not.
That's because
you haven't seen him
drive it.
Right. Well, I think the first half will be pro-business. Right to work is another example of that. The second half will be what do you do on ethics reform and and it's likely he may fail on that.
Just briefly, Nick, it's a mistake because the first year of a new governor's term in office is when you have the most political momentum behind you to get big things done, like fixing I-70. That will require enormous political will to get a big project like that over the finish line, multi-billions of dollars there to get that done. He's passed on that opportunity. It's a loss for the entire state.
Some Kansas City officials getting indigestion this week over President Trump's new slimmed-down budget.
It seems that the government has turned its back. And I'll not go with them. I'm not going to be a part of making America ache again.
Kansas City Congressman Emanuel Cleaver, one program that is being eliminated with a tangible impact on KC is the Tiger Grant Program, which helped pay a hefty part of the streetcar line. Tiger, by the way, is the acronym for Transportation Investment Generating Economic Recovery. I'm putting my teeth back in. Without that program, can Kansas City expand its streetcar line?
You know, it's going to be a whole lot tougher, Nick. That Tiger Grant provided fully 1/5, $20 million of the $100 million streetcar program. It was seen as essential at the time. Can you overcome that? Yeah, but it's going to be a whole lot tougher. No question.
And it's always important to connect the dots on all of this. First of all, Steve's right about the Tiger Grant. Although, pork barrel projects are under some scrutiny in Washington, that might have gone under any circumstances. But I wrote a story today that talked about cuts to after-school and summer programs federally funded in school districts, poorer school districts in Kansas. They're talking about a new formula. Let's help this 1/4 of students do better. So they'll spend more money at the state level, and then the feds are going to take away money that was used to feed those kids and to keep teaching them during the summer. People don't realize how connected all of these things are and how difficult it is to solve problems when you have the federal government at odds with local governments, at odds with state governments. That's why sometimes things don't get addressed.
And in addition to that, to step away from the Tiger, he also cut the Community Development Block Grants. CDBG. A lot of things are funded through CDBG to help the community. Blighted areas, where are they going to get that money from now? And in addition to that, I think the one that really caught my attention the most was the Meals on Wheels. And their rationale behind it was, well, we don't know whether this is doing any improvement with anything. Well, even though people were eating, and what it helped with was people had conversations. They knew that their drivers were going to come by, they were going to sit down and talk to them. So it was more than just eating. Nutrition is important, but for seniors, just having somebody to talk to is very, very
Well, there is a deficit, and can the country pay for every single program, Barbara?
No, of course not. But, and we have to remember the president's budget is just kind of a framework that he tossed out there. It's not going to become so. But, we have these priorities for a long time. And, I think we are going to see some shifting of priorities.
A lot of people in our metro this week are fixated on hardwood courts and basketball hoops as the Sweet 16 is in Kansas City for the first time in more than 20 years as hordes gather at Sprint Center for that this year. By the way, also marks 10 years of the college basketball experience right next door. Yep, it's been that long. KCPT's Ebony Bing takes a closer look.
Kansas City has tons of hidden gems. You just have to know where to find them, with one of them being the college basketball experience.
We are excited that we are currently in the 10th year of operations here at the College Basketball Experience. We do wish more people knew about it. We do wish more people realized that we were the official Hall of Fame and that we are an active Hall of Fame. So every year we induct 6 to 8 players, coaches, or contributors into the Hall of Fame.
I think when people think Hall of Fame, they think of like stuffy old artifacts and there's not much to do. The CBE, like I think they tell you that it's fun for all ages and like that's just like a cool slogan people say. The CBE really is one of those things. It's one of those things that you can take your kid to who is just starting to learn basketball. You can go on a date. You can take a field trip to the CBE. You can just take your dad that's a big college basketball fan that hasn't had the opportunity to see a lot of the history of the game through that perspective. Like it really is something for everybody. And that's one thing I don't think really people in Kansas City know a lot about.
As soon as you come in, you're automatically hit with the dynamics of our venue. So immediately you have the coach greeting you in the locker room. He's giving you a pep talk. You walk down the tip-off tunnel. The crowd is cheering for you. And then boom, you see center court. It's huge. You're ready to go out there. You see all kinds of people playing. You can jump into a pickup game, play around, pick a certain hoop, shoot on that. There's a 3-on-3 challenge court right there. And then you continue to, explore. And there's exhibits everywhere, all throughout both floors. There's so much to do here, in addition to the Hall of Fame. But definitely, when you leave, you're gonna appreciate it if you dressed comfortably, because there's so much to do.
While it's sparkly and interactive, a venue spokesperson recently acknowledged that there are days they may see just one visitor. And last year, they came to the city to ask them to forgive $600,000 of more than $1 million loan from taxpayers that still hasn't been repaid a decade later. Given all the madness over college hoops, why the struggle?
Well, it's bad marketing because a lot of people don't know it's there, and it's kind of pricey. It's pretty expensive. If you're going down there with your family, you'll eat up a $100 bill plus. So it's pretty expensive, and it's bad marketing.
Steve,
the description of this facility as a hidden gem is absolutely right. It is off the beaten path, and I don't think about it when I have friends from out of town come here, and I should, because it's a terrific facility.
With all the hoopla over the college hoops, are we still subsidizing the Power and Light District also?
Yeah,
Dave?
every year out of the
Still?
general fund. You know, we're going to voters here in a couple of weeks asking for more money for infrastructure. Some of the money that might have gone for infrastructure in other parts of the city is going to the Power and Light District. But I wrote a thing earlier, Nick. All the museums in Kansas City are struggling a little bit, and they need to get together and figure out a way to market them.
And that is our Week in Review. Our thanks to our news reviewers. I'm Nick Haynes from all of us at KCPT. Thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.